Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to today's event hosted by Al Walid Cultural Network and partners. Today, my name is Abir Al Fouti, and I am delighted to welcome with me a couple of very dear friends and colleagues and interesting leaders of a couple of museums that we work with regularly at Al Walid Cultural Network and at Al Walid Philanthropy. And if I may, my name is Abir Al Fouti, as I said, and I am the executive lead for global initiatives at Al Walid Philanthropies. Since 2020, we have started working with all our partners who are focused on cultural bridging and promoting understanding and tolerance, which is one of our focus areas at Al Walid Philanthropies, to develop a concept or a platform that um, is a space for youth and individuals and experts to come together and learn about each other's culture and the world and help build bridges of tolerance and understanding. And today, which is, or actually, we're getting ready to celebrate one of the UNESCO International Days, the International Day for Islamic Art. We decided to take the subject of Islamic art and science in European museums to be the subject of discussion for today. So we welcome you, everyone, and we should start. I would like to give the microphone to our colleagues after we make a quick introduction. So I have with me today Professor Silke Ekman, who is the director of the History of Science Museum, the University of Oxford. She has studied European history, language, and culture of Islamic world. She worked for more than 16 years in a variety of curatorial and managerial roles at the British Museum, London. And then she moved to Germany. She worked there in leadership, in cultural management, in private university in Germany. In 2014, she went back to the UK, and then she became the first female ever to lead the museum, to be the museum director at the University of Oxford. So we welcome Dr. Silas. I have with me also Professor Stefan Weber from the Berlin Museum. Professor Stefan is a known figure in Germany and the Arab world in the field of creation, museums, and German archaeology. He worked before in Damascus and also in Beirut at the Oriental Institute. And now he is the lead who is working on conceptualizing the Museum of Berlin, the Islamic Art Department. And he also led the creation or the development of several community outreach projects, including Multaqa, which took off from Berlin to around the world. So we welcome Professor Stefan with us. We would like to start, and I give the microphone to our speakers to also introduce themselves and add more to this opening. Dr. Stefan.
Stefan, over to you.
Okay, I think thank you so much, Abir, for this wonderful introduction. There is nothing more to say, actually, or more to discover. Of course.
Jump to the questions?
We are very happy to be here to this afternoon discuss with you and the others, with Silke and the inspiring projects they're doing in Oxford. But it's very important that we discuss ideas about museums because we want to connect to society better. We want to take the potential of the museum and give a few ideas about the museum itself. It is founded in 1904. It was the first museum in non-Muslim Islamic countries, the second in the world, to featuring Islamic art and cultures. And the nice thing from the beginning it was not as a kind of isolated museum that is far away somewhere, but it was directly part of global history. So it was taken on the Museum Island, a very, very important place for Berlin cultural history. And then it's put in the Pergamon Museum to get all these kind of connections from the antiquities to today. So we have Islamic art embedded in world heritage, in world cultures. There's a kind of eye level, is a kind of recognition of the important cultures, important merits that Islamic cultures have in connecting as this cultural highway from China to Europe, from Central Asia to Africa. So we are very happy to have a collection which is in a way also unique, because there's a lot of architectural elements, main architectural elements, and now we are going to be there to doing the building of the museum, reinvention of the museum, while tripling almost its space. It will be becoming the largest museum of Islamic art, I think, worldwide. And it is connected again to not only to antiquities but also to the present. So we try to build bridges to give accessibility to visitors on the museum island. We have every year, we had every year about 1 million visitors. We closed 3 weeks ago for refurbishment. We opened in 3.5 years, but we have a great chance to bring Islamic art to people in Germany, to school classes, in youth clubs, but also to the many visitors, and have a wider picture. But about this, I think we talk later. At first, I think Silke has a very good deal to say about what they are doing and how important their museum is.
Thank you, Stefan. Hello, good day, everybody, wherever you are, in whichever time zone. Our museum is different, very different from Stefan's museum in Berlin. We are a museum of the History of Science Museum in Oxford. And you may wonder what that has to do with art. Actually, an enormous amount. But what are we? Who are we? We were founded in 1924. So almost 100 years ago, which is one of the reasons why we are undergoing major transformation. And the collection itself is, when you come to the museum, you will find it is what we call Bijou. It's a very small place, but it's the oldest purpose-built public museum building in the world. Which in itself is very special. And what's even more special is that it was founded as the home for what was then called natural philosophy, which we would now call science. So it has this link right from the beginning, although it was created for another collection to start with, the Ashmolean, totally different collection from what it's now. And it started off in the founding collection with an absolutely superb collection of what we would now call astronomical, mathematical instruments from both Europe and the Islamic world, which is absolutely unparalleled anywhere else in the world. So we may be small in size, but the collection is phenomenal. And that gives us a wonderful opportunity into the topic. To be a meeting place of people, science, art, and belief, because many of our objects are so stunningly beautiful that the majority of them actually, that they could easily live in Stefan's museum. Don't see that as an offer, Stefan. They could easily, in theory, live in your museum because they are just outstanding, superb, mind-boggling works of art. But they are also they are a container for knowledge. They embody transfer of knowledge between cultures, and that is what we are so interested in. The transfer of knowledge. There is not this doesn't happen in isolation. And here's a planet and there's a planet. It just weaves and interweaves into each other. Knowledge, ideas are being passed on. So the term science is actually very misleading. We would much prefer to talk about knowledge, knowledge coming from cultures being brought together through those instruments. And that is what our museum is about.
Thank you very much for this brief intro about both museums. And actually what Professor or Dr. Silke just highlighted this is the exact reason why we at Al Walid Philanthropies wanted to invest and work with such world-known organizations like yours. And in reference to launching Al Walid Cultural Network and for the museum and the History of Science Museum and Pergamon Museum to join this network, we thought of this in 2020 during the lockdown. to create this website and platform as a digitalization way or an accessible way to reach more society, more individuals, and become more inclusive. And on that note, and considering all the changes that is happening now in the world, whether it's societal change or technological change, how do you see both of your organizations adapting to this change, and how do you want to be more accessible and more reaching to more individuals?
Silke, this time you start.
I thought you start because your transformation is further.
Like you want. Oh, I just jump in. So the question is, of course, how to reach people. The museum have always a reputation to being old and dusty, and so our challenge is, of course, to reach people in a way that they're taking something out of the museum. So not that we have no visitors, the opposite is true. So we were booked out before we closed for months. So people are coming. We don't feel a crisis of the museum in numbers, but we need to think about what should they take with them, what should they have as an enrichment for their or new tools for their life today, and then show you a few things that we thought of that we should work with to make things better working. First of all, you know, the label system in museums is very, very difficult. Very often, and we have many of old labels which are really unreadable, uninteresting. So how we can make labels that are inspiring and that are work like a menu. You take very quickly what you want. You don't need to read everything, but you're like somebody who's going into to flip on a television at night and seeing what you're very interested in, and you should be able to select very quickly. So not everything for everybody, but for everyone something. Second was to work with graphic to enrich the reading experience. The third one is to work with haptic elements to interact with things. Of course, we're working a lot with techniques also, but we want also to have, you know, we're in a museum with originals. We have not only the virtual world, which we take in a way as well, but we want to have Islamic art as an experience, so that you listen, you hear, you smell, and you have an all-over feeling of art, which only museums who have objects that are real can do. And so we hope that we can engage people with other elements as well, participation like Multaka, to have labels with our teams, Multaka teams here and there, to have artists who interact with the collection and so on and so forth. So to make it more meaningful, to have more access points to bring the past to the present and make the past present and helpful for your life today. This is the technical part. Maybe later also on what we would love to reach with that.
Well, we are going very much in the same direction and asking ourselves very similar questions. We are not as far in the development as Berlin is, because our the way we transform in England, or in Oxford in this case, is different. Not only do we need planning permission for a 1683 founded or created building, but I also need to bring in the philanthropic funds, or bring in the funds via philanthropic means to make those changes. So it's a slightly different approach, but that has its advantages, because it gives us time to think very hard what we want to do, gives us an opportunity to talk to our communities and bring them into the discussion. And you mentioned digital technologies, Abir, to just bring that back to that point briefly. I would probably advocate, well, I would advocate that there is a difference between on-site and online. Now, let's start with the online. We are very, very conscious that most people in the world will never make it to Oxford, not least because it's a very, very expensive place to be. It is an expensive trip to come here. So we know that many people will engage with us via digital means. And that gives us an opportunity to rethink, as we're doing at the moment with our centenary exhibition for next year, celebrating our founding collection, Louis Evans, how we develop that. In the olden days, we would have started with a physical exhibition and then maybe said, okay, well, let's do something digital with that. We're turning that on its head and are creating digital first, so that many people around the world can take part in it, can see what we're doing, can engage with it, but also we create a legacy once the physical display is closed down again. Which gives us phenomenal opportunities to reach people and also to bring in a multitude of voices. Stefan, you've mentioned labels, and of course, the question we're always asking ourselves, both of us, is whose voice is on the label? And that is, of course, something where in the past there was always the curator, the authoritative voice of the museum. And of course, we know this is just one of many voices. And any object we look at can tell a very different story and can have many different voices. So that is, of course, what digital enables us to do. When it comes to the museum itself, there was a tendency for the last 20 years ago or so, when digital became a much stronger opportunity to do all the whizzy and pressing buttons and everything you could possibly do. And we observe that particularly younger audience, the digital born natives, are almost getting tired with that because you can do that on your phone at home. Why would you go to a museum to start with? So to connect closer with your objects, which you've beautifully shown in your slides, Stefan, museums appear dusty and remote because they don't reflect the world around us. The world around us is smelly and it's got shadows and it's got things you can touch, and unless we manage to change that and be a better reflection of the real world out there, and in other words be relevant, there will remain something which is a bit like a goldfish tank or stuffed animals in a natural history museum. It's not the animals out there where we see them in freedom and all their movements. Now, our objects in particular were always meant to be used. They're all practical objects to find a solution. So to have them hanging in a case really divorces them from their use. So digital in the museum for us is a way to enhance what the objects themselves, what we can do with the objects themselves, of course, handling, but also bringing in craftsmen to really demonstrate and take visitors with us on engraving, for example. How were the objects made? For many people, it's not that straightforward. We've never handled something like that. But we're also working on a brand new initiative, which is not done anywhere else in the world. It's called Digital Showcase, where the glass of the showcase is actually a screen. So you can touch that screen, that part of the showcase, and ask questions, find out a lot more about the object which is displayed in that case. You can see it whilst you're asking those questions. That is one of the many ways we're trying to bring or to reflect that there's so many questions we may never have thought about. So there's an awful lot of opportunities, but I also think that gives us we need to take greater responsibility what we do with those opportunities, rather than just turning everything digital, when one might say, and some people do actually say, why do you still need the original stuff, which we would of course fight strongly against.
Thank you so much, both Professor Stefan and Dr. Silke, for the points you have highlighted. But I'm thinking, how do you see the youth? I mean, the youth now is digital, really. Everything for them is digitalized. They live in a virtual reality world. Do you think, I mean, I'm following up on the same question. Do you think there will be a day when the experience or the experience we have personally when we visit the museum can be lived in a virtual reality somehow?
Me or you, Stefan?
I know I'm diverting from
Yeah,
everything
no,
on
no, no, no,
discussion,
no,
but
no
I
problem
just got
at all.
excited.
Yeah,
So I
no,
wanted to know.
it's an exciting possibility. I'm sitting now in Rabat today, and I'm extremely happy to sitting not only in a nice space with nice people, but also to have the architecture and the environment around. So virtual reality is always a possibility to get this closer, this feeling closer to being there, of having the idea of a space. In the end, it's great to do so, but it's another experience that you can do. Of course, you should do partially in the museum, and you can do at home, bring things closer, but you cannot replace the real place. It's the real thing, the space that you feel, that when you move your body, when you smell, when you touch things, it is something different. It means that does not mean that the one doesn't allow for the other. It's that you could make both happening in different settings. We are lucky in the museum to have large architectural elements. It would be, we tried it. We made augmented realities. We went to, for example, Alhambra, worked with the colleagues from over there to reconstruct the space of the cupola that we have. Mashhad and Aleppo in Syria, for sure, is the same. So it's nice, but what we work harder with is that we want to have the real space as an experience, and then allow for other things to add on. And as Silke said, to going not only on site or not only off site, but also online to reach out for many people. But then also what we missed always, and what we have to develop better, is to make tours or programs for young people, like an access, how it's called, these games. There's the games that you play on with your own machine, and you get out of a space, escape games. And now we have 3 people who are going to develop an escape game for the museum while working with the object. So to allow for more experience, and one doesn't deny the other. But it does not. 3D is not a solution for it. It's an add-on.
I would completely and passionately agree with that. It's not one or the other. It's making best use of the tools we have out there. I would argue that virtual reality is an alternative to the real thing. Is the same as saying AI is like having a relationship with a real person. It is not. It is absolutely not. It can do lots of things, but I've never, ever, not once in my long career, met one person, whatever their age, who did not have this feeling of awe and spine-tingling excitement when the original was put in their hands. It is just something you can't replace virtually. You just can't. One really has to feel that, and I still feel that every day when I have we're enormously privileged, we museum people. We handle objects that are hundreds of years old, have been in courts, have been in around the world, and we just have them. It's just phenomenal. And to share that moment that gets us out of bed in the morning is just fantastic. But there are, of course, ways in which we can enhance that. For example, the building we use, as I said, oldest purpose-built public museum building in the world, was not a display. It only had display in the top gallery. The basement was a working chemical laboratory. Now, we would never get health and safety sign off recreating a working chemical laboratory in the basement of a museum. So that's something we could beautifully do with VR, that one can virtually walk through the old space. But to create a workshop of let's say, a maker of some of our instruments virtually, if I could do it on site and bring a craftsman from a place where the same skills are still practiced over and demonstrate that to our visitors of whatever age, and let them hold a burin themselves and engrave the metal, I would absolutely, I would certainly claim that is much more powerful for everybody.
I agree with you. I personally would rather be in the museum and touch and feel. I'm just thinking, because we are always here at Al Walid Philanthropies, we're always trying to engage with the society and consider the demography of the society and the age, the targeted group that we are focusing on, and speak their language. So this is where my question was coming from. This actually takes me to the next question with, are museums, is it fair to say that museums are a social and important and impactful social actor? What possibility do museums have to support the development of our society? If you may highlight that for me.
Stefan, you want to stick with the sequence?
Like you want. Let's take it from somewhere out of the galleries. When we're looking to the objects and culture and thinking what they do tell us, of course, they don't speak by themselves. We have to research a lot, and we're thinking and having practices of researching and writing about this for many decades. We're talking very often about things moving, how influences are from all over the world. But when you take it down and say, what does it mean today? So we try to come up with new themes read out of the galleries that may be interesting for us today. For example, we see that all our objects talking about mobility and migration. So they're always on the move. They talk always about plurality of society, that there are different players inside society, different groups, religiously, ethnically, language-wise, and so on and so forth, plurality in whatever you can think. That all these movements happened in entanglements, in networks of connections, that I'm never alone. I'm always in connection with many who are very important for my cultural being. That it's continuously changing and transformation. So we don't need to be afraid about change. It's normal. It happens all the time. There's no single second of no change. And then it's always about networks and agencies. So it's always we are doing our history. It's not made for us. We are part of it. So if we take that out, and this are the 5 points that we took out of reading our own stories that we created out of the objects that we research. When we take that out, we think, okay, then what does it mean in the end for us? And we says in the end that culture, and this is very important for us today, ever has been, from the past to the present, not be thinkable without plurality, change, mobility, migration, exchange of people. And we can see that that migration is the mother of all our cultures, and culture and plurality, its basis. So when we take that as a focal point, and this is also where we first met Abir with Al Walid, that what is our vision? And our vision is that through these bridges inside our cultural reading, we see that it's talking about how people work and live together, how they can do and deal with it with each other. That openness, open identities are positive things, and they are the basis of cultural development. So we went take this all in our object. There's not an ideology, it's not a philosophy, it's what our objects are saying. And now with this vision that we have in common here with Al Walid Culture Network, we can go out and say, this is what we want to show better. We're always reading Islamic art history as these are the Umayyads, the Abbasids, the Fatimids, the Ayyubids. No, we have more to say. And this is something that we can do together. And you have us so wonderful to do that with Multakar, with digital networks, and so on and so forth. We cannot do that alone. And this is fantastic to being done as a group together and be learning from each other. And then we can hopefully, I think we can help society. Maybe Islamic art is not saving the world. I would like to claim this, but that's it. We act like this. We hope that we can save small worlds, and I'm sure we do, by making open and integrative identities or supporting them.
Well, absolutely, and it is precisely that, not being a political statement and not saying this is what you have to do, or be in any way prescriptive. The objects can do that much, much better than we can. And that is all of those stories, which Stefan just so beautifully highlighted, that are us. We are the outcome of that. We are the result of that. The objects are in many ways personalities, if you like, that travel. They have biographies. They go to different places. They get into difficulties. And that is why we are, of course, all exploring now the stories that were maybe not quite so beautiful. We're all exploring those. We are all telling them. It's all about the relevance for the discussions that are going on at the moment. But particularly the network. If Stefan, you only had one object on display, or we only had one object on display, that would be very, very boring for most people. The interaction, the talking to each other, the networking, which is what Al Walid Cultural Network is all about, the fact that we are together and have already bounced so many ideas off each other, are creating new projects which neither of us had previously thought about. But are also, of course, if I may just add to you, Stefan, it's not just Islamic art that's saving the world. Of course, it's Islamic art and science, if I may just get a point in there, our ongoing discussion. Whatever is art, whatever is science, it is really all the aspects of what makes us human. And that is where culture comes in. All of those aspects. There is not just something we can say, this is just Islamic art, because what is Islamic and what is art? And where does the science come in? And where does the interweaving of the different cultures come in, which is the outcome of that? Unless one lives on a very, very isolated island that nobody ever visits, that is never happening. So also be willing to be a place or places for what people want us to be. So it's perfectly all right if the museum, actually I would very much love it, if the museum was seen as a cool place to hang out in, where you meet your friends. Nothing wrong with that. Or a place where you want to find a platform for a difficult topic that is currently being discussed, and you don't want to, it's not a political space, it's still seen as a neutral space. It's not that we have the answers, but we provide the opportunity to discuss. And all of those things are really, really relevant. So our role in society is, or can be, it's not by itself, it's just happening by itself. If we're really willing to engage with that, our role in society can be enormous. But of course, together with our communities out there, we can't do this on our own. It's got to be a giving and taking, bringing people in, hearing voices, changing. So our transformation of the displays is very much building in, or rather getting rid of, I should say, permanent displays, because nothing in life is permanent. So we want to be as flexible as possible, as dynamic as possible, so that we can react in short notice to some discussion that's going on, or as we all know, the world can change very quickly in very short amount of time. How do we respond to that? And how do we become a place where communities come and feel we are discussing this together? We can find maybe ways around it.
I mean, you said it beautifully, Dr. Silky. And this actually, I wanted to take that and build on it, specifically the part where you talked about the partnerships and the importance of working together as a group by highlighting Al Walid Cultural Network membership or members who have joined. We have created or launched ACN or Walid Cultural Network in 2022, at December 2022, after a lot of work we have done together as a group since 2020 by doing several workshops where we identified the need, the beneficiaries, what we can offer. And then this beautiful partnership includes Berlin Museum, includes Oxford Museum, Pitt Rivers Museum. We are working with the Center of American Studies and Research at American University of Beirut, the Center of American Studies, the American University of Cairo, the Center of Islamic Studies and the University of Cambridge,
We have the program of Muslim Christian understanding in Georgetown, or the center in Georgetown, I should say. Also the center in Edinburgh, who is actually hosting us today. And I give a shout out to Asia and of course Tom, who has been involved since the beginning. Thank you so much. Then we've got with us Berlin, I've already mentioned, and we're working now with others, such as the Louvre to join. Turquoise Mountain is part of the network, and New York University, Abu Dhabi, and the World Organization of Scouts movement. All these organizations came together to launch this platform, Al Walid Cultural Network, to provide or reach out to society and be a source of connection, discussions, dialogues, programs, learnings, courses, among many events like today. And I encourage everyone who's listening to me today to join the network and share with us your thoughts and ideas and suggestions on how we can make this a better place. And my question to my guests, honorable guests today, how do you see the importance of partnerships in shaping and helping the change in society, the partnerships?
I think without partnerships, we're lost. Neither of us can do this on their own. It starts in a small context, in a private part, in a personal partnership, having somebody else with whom one can go through the world, having friends with whom one can tackle opportunities and challenges, but also the inspiration from others. You were mentioning the launch of the network in December, and of course we'd met each other, all of us, online. And we could have said, this is post-pandemic, we do everything online now, it's much cheaper, and nobody needs to travel. But the spark that came out of us meeting each other, most of us for the first time in Riyadh in December last year, and the collaborations that have come out of it, the work we're already doing in smaller configurations, the inspiration we're taking from just listening to somebody else and thinking, oh yeah, maybe I can do something about that, or maybe I can contribute and support it, is just is really I think the only way forward. I can't imagine any other way.
Yes, sir.
Well, yes, that's right. It's what you do without partners. You should stop directly. No, it's really so important to look to work with people and with partners who have all their own expertise that oneself does not have. So one is always limited in viewpoints, in access of reality, in expertise, and while working with others, it's so helpful to recharge your brain and to get activity. And you are in the middle. You are supporting so many great institutions, and it's was when I saw the network first, I thought, wow, that must be great to work with them. But I saw that what you saw that they all work by themselves, and you did the right thing to say, let's meet and discuss, because you already have this depth of very good people with great ideas in your basket. So why not connecting and making something new out of it? And we still have to think to develop visions and projects. When institutions working together is not easy. It's that they have all their own. They're all busy with themselves. They have their own rhythm, their own language and legal department, and so on and so forth. But for sure, one should think about, and one will think about, how we can find projects that we can get stronger with. When I only hearing that the World Scouts organization is part of it, and you discuss how to reach young people, here you are. We should only start to think what can we do, and this is a great opportunity. Yeah, thank you for that, and I hope we will. Yeah, for example, with Silke now, whenever I have a question, I call her on the backboard. So we started to interact, and this is a very, very important thing.
Well, it is also,
Absolutely.
since you mentioned the scouts, if I may just add to that, Abia, we've been discussing for a long time here in Oxford, working with youth groups, setting up a new youth panel, all of those things. And you mentioned the scouts, and we thought, gosh, how idiotic can we really be? There's an obvious, ready-made, international group of young people who have become really, really inclusive. Why haven't we worked with them before? So thank you for that. And that is what partnership is about. Sometimes the obvious is staring us in the face, and it needs somebody else in the partnership to say, actually, have you looked over there?
Absolutely. We always say it here at AP that it's just sometimes it's just about linking the dots and seeing, putting everything in front of you and connecting it together to create a powerful impact. And I hope together with you and all the partners who are with us on the Youth Culture Network, we can make a difference by changing mindsets and promoting tolerance and understanding. And all of us have learned, despite we're different languages, as Professor Stefan said, different focuses, different languages, different countries. Yet, when we came together, our impact can be enormous. And on that, and to wrap up, I know we want to give some time to our viewers to hopefully participate with us and share some questions. But before we go to that, I have a last question for both of you. And it's about the future. It's about what do you want to do for the future? So if I can ask you to close your eyes and think, how do you see your museum in 5 years? What would that dream look like? Can you share that with us?
Silke, you first.
Okay. Well, what I would really like the museum to be is a meeting place for people of different backgrounds, different experience, different goals, different interests that brings them there. I want it to be a buzzing place. I want it to be noisy. I want people to feel it's their place. So to take ownership of it's not something we generously share, but which is their place to make and shape together with us. I want I would like to see, rather, in my dream, dynamic displays with multiple voices and stories that are really relevant. There's so many stories to tell, and there's so many voices to tell them. And to also bring to life that everything we look at can be seen by somebody else in a totally different way. And it doesn't mean it's wrong. Or one is right and the other one is wrong. It means it's a different way to look at it. And if we could achieve that with our small place, I would be very, very happy.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
What more to say? I think you said it perfectly. And if I close my eyes and dream, then exactly what you said. Maybe also to have this kind of that people coming out inspired, so that they come out of the museum and talk about it like they talk about the film when they get out of the cinema. So it's that there's still something making something with them, that they're still thinking things over and are inspired or having feelings that they take with them, that they remember them, the smells and the feelings and their atmosphere, that they discuss this and take that to answer a few questions or to enrich their thinking about the reality of today. And then it's great. So the worst thing is that they get bored. And as to say that I don't know what they want. I have nothing learned. It was so boring. So, the opposite. But I think we manage our. We have in the network now. We need our testing ground, and then with all the others saying, is that stupid what we're doing, or is that really helpful and bring us to where you want to go?
Then I would like to truly and genuinely thank everyone, specifically Professor Stefan and Dr. Silke, for their time, the team, the support team in Edinburgh, Tom, Lee, and Asia, and you guys who are
bared with us and listened and tuned in. Thank you very much. Until our next event on ACN, stay tuned. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.